Okay, so I have a couple piles here. I have 2 piles of not growing this year, this coming season, and then I have one little pile of 2 things that I'm not really sure. I haven't really made up my mind yet if I'm going to grow them or not this year. So I'm kind of leaning towards no, but I'll tell you why when I get there. So I am not going to be growing contender beans this year because that glare is really bad, because I already grew them. I've grown them a couple of years, and I have a different pole bean, couple different pole beans that I want to try this season that I haven't tried before. I'm already growing a French bean, filet bean. I'm not going to grow these early Spanish beans. I put these in late in the ground last year, and they didn't really, nothing really did very well last year. I'm going to go through that too. I'll tell you what did good and what didn't do good here in a little bit. But so I'm going to pass on those this year. I'm going to pass on the long eggplant because I'm growing the typical Black Beauty eggplant, and then I got a smaller eggplant too that looks really fun. So I'm not going to grow any baby Tuscan kale because I'm growing some other varieties of kale that if I want them to be baby greens, I can just harvest them young. The Orient Wonder Bean, I'm not going to grow this year. Again, I put that one in late too. Last year I was trying to do like a double harvest, you know, and I put them in late thinking that they would work, and they didn't. I'm not planting any of this English lavender this time because I have a variety of lavender I've already planted that's doing a cold stratification right now out in my back room, and that's Munstead lavender, Munstead, is a culinary variety that you can eat, put in tea, ice cream, syrups, all that kind of stuff. So if I'm going to grow something, I don't have a huge space, so I'm going to grow something that also looks pretty, smells pretty, the pollinators like it, but then I can eat it as well. So I'm growing that lavender instead of this one. And lavender's never done well for me when I've planted from seed, and probably because I've never done the cold stratification. So hopefully this year will be the year for quite a few things, I'm hoping. I'm positive about it. And then I'm just not growing these soybeans this year. I've not ever tried to grow them, but I have another variety, the Chiba ones by Botanical Gardens, and those are a quicker producing. These are a 90-day. Those were like a 65, 70, 75 day. So again, not enough space. I'd rather have something with a shorter growing season. So that's why I chose not to grow any of those items this season. And then this is my other little list. And so I am not going to be growing any Morning Glory. I planted this last year, and then I realized that it's very invasive, and it will just climb up everything and take over everything. It was like all wrapped around some of my sunflowers, and I was like, no more, we're not doing that. I'm not growing any lemon cucumbers. I've grown these for quite a few years, and they're really prolific, but they're not our favorite cucumbers. So a lot of times they go to waste. So my big thing this year is I'm gonna really try not to do that. So I'm not growing any lemon balm this year. I take that back. I am not planting this lemon balm, just the normal typical Melissa officinalis or whatever it's called, because I planted a huge thing of it last year, and it's a perennial in my zone, and I did not know that until recently, and I just checked yesterday because the snow is melting and it's gone, and it is growing back in there. I put it on my stories. You should go look if it's still there. But yeah, you'll see it's all brown and dead, and then there's all this little green underneath coming up. So that was very exciting. So I don't need to plant any more of this, but I am planting the Mandrina lemon balm because it's supposed to taste like mandarins or has that scent, and that's going to be amazing. Lemon balm is one of my favorites. It was really sad. It's very gratifying to plant something from seed, have it grow, be able to harvest it, dry it, and then utilize it. I have this, all the lemon balm I grew is in a tea blend that I made for nighttime, and it's amazing, and I love it. And it's super good antiviral, just so you know. I'm not growing Roma tomatoes this year because I'm growing a San Marzano. Again, I have limited space. I don't need multiple different kinds of paste tomatoes. So, because honestly, I probably won't end up making paste this year. But I will end up roasting those San Marzanos or sun drying them, like sun dried tomatoes or roasted tomatoes, and then like freezing them or something, or putting them in olive oil or whatever. I will do that. I'm not going to grow these little patio tumbler tomatoes because I already have a couple of these sprouting that I have a grow light that I'm going to see if I can get them to grow in a little pot. I'm going to pot them up into probably like a little 1 or 2 gallon felt bag and see if they'll grow. So again, I just have other smaller, I have one spoon tomato plant, micro tomato plant that I'm going to plant outdoors this year, maybe in a little container, or I want to get a green stalk eventually. So I have that one I'm going to do. So I'm not going to do another one of these, and I'm not going to do another one of the yellow patio tomatoes that I got from Botanical Gardens, because again, I have a couple of these also sprouted right now and growing, so I don't need more of those. I'm not going to grow the pear tomato, yellow pear tomato. I just have grown these the last couple years, and they're very prolific, but again, they're not super flavorful. Maybe I wait too long and harvest them when they're too big, but they get very big, like the size of my thumb, and they're kind of a little bit fibrous, not fibrous, but like the skin's a little snappier when you bite into it, I guess is the way to, I don't know. It's not my favorite. So I've got, again, other cherry tomatoes. I got Sun Sugar and Sun Gold and Sweetie 100s this year that I would rather have space for than these. Tomatillos, it saddens me to not grow these, but when I did try to grow them, they are huge and they take over, and you have to have at least 2 plants for them to be able to pollinate, and I just don't have the room. I'm super sad because I would love to grow them, because I would love, Verde is one of my favorites, so, but I just can't. Loofahs, not growing. They're a moody bitch and I don't like them. I tried growing them multiple times and it didn't happen. My heart hurts over it. So I've seen all these people I watch in my channels and they all had loofahs, not in Washington. I am not going to grow any, these are the last 3 I have, are like some different varieties of kale, curly kale. And I'm not growing any of these because I like the more dinosaur kales, or the black kales, the less tough ones, and the ones that are less curly. And part of that is because they're just easier to eat, they're not as fibrous, and the aphids love the curly, and my kale was covered last year. It was horrible, but I'm just gonna pass on these for this year. I lied. I might just plant 1 plant or 2 plants of curly kale, just because I really like it to make kale chips, because this is the kind of variety you would want to use for like kale chips. So I take that back. I probably will end up planting some. Anyways, and it's going to be this dwarf curly kale because it is a dwarf variety, so I can like put it in a little container and it will be fine. So there you go. So those are the other ones that I'm not going to be planting. Come on. And then the other 2 varieties that I had that I wasn't sure about was these 2. Was some pumpkins. Some little jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, and these Ciccicolata huckleberries. And here's why. The pumpkins, well, part of it is just room, and they're full sun varieties, and I'm not sure where I want to put them and if I want to dedicate the space to them. Even though I think the pumpkins would be super, super fun for the girls. They're 3, so my granddaughter and my bonus granddaughter. So, but we also, where we live, we also have an area, there's farms all over around us, so we can actually go up to a place called Green Bluff, and there's a bunch of different farms, and we can go pick pumpkins and do that, so if we want to. So I think I'm going to pass on these. And then the huckleberries, again, I don't know if I have all the room to do that if I want to dedicate the room to it. And also, I forgot when I bought these that huckleberries are poisonous when they are not ripe. And it kind of makes me a little nervous with the girls. Like last year, Penelope went up and grabbed a jalapeno that was ripe and just grabbed it and popped it in her mouth and took a big old bite and then was like, oh, it's hot. So I would, you know, for that reason, and my dog, I probably won't plant the huckleberries. Maybe eventually I can find a friend who wants them and they'll share with me when they ripen or something like that. But my gut tells me not to, so that's what I listen to. All right, so those are what I'm not planning this year. And a few things I just wanted to go over was, so some of the stuff last year that did really well, my little list here. The stuff that did really well last year for me was my sunflowers did amazing. They were huge. We had one sunflower, and I think it was a mammoth sunflower. But it was, I think the last time my husband got the ladder out and measured, it was over 14 feet tall. And this year I got another variety. It's like a Russian mammoth or something like that. And it says on there that it can grow to 10 to 16 feet. So we'll see. So the sunflowers did amazing, all my sunflowers. My potatoes did well. We did get a little harvest of potatoes, so that was really fun. So I definitely be doing potatoes again. My shelling peas was the first year I've done shelling peas. I did the Little Marvels bush shelling peas. They're super sweet, super yummy. They did really, really well. Peas are a really very minimal effort for me or for where I live in my growing season. They work really well in my growing zone. I'm in zone 6B, but to be honest with you, like I think it's more like 5B to up to 6B. So it could be anywhere within that range. Like this year we were down to like -10. 6B is only -5 to 0. So with climate change happening, you really need to be watching your date. Don't just assume, oh, this is my zone because it's been this way for all the time. You know, and again, just because you live somewhere where it says this is the zone you're in, it really is the plants telling you what does well and stuff like that. So kind of watch that as well. So my shelling peas and my snap peas, both of those did really, really well. So that's fun. And I planted, calendula always does super well. It's very prolific. You have to really, really be careful because it will reseed itself in like 2 seconds flat. And then you'll have just nothing but this sea of beautiful calendula, which is nice, but you only need so much calendula. So I harvested a bunch of calendula, multiple harvests, and I have mine in here. I actually need to drain it. But I got 2 jars of calendula flowers that are steeping in extra organic, extra virgin olive oil. And this I'll save and make salves with it, bath stuff with it, face oil, whatever. And it's edible, so you could always use it for food, salad dressing or something like that. You could always do that too. And then another thing that was really cool was last year I made our little garden area patio, little pathway up to our little garden gate to go in. I kind of weeded all of that out and I put some little bricks down, just what I had laying around. And then I went and got some lamb's ear, which is like it's a ground cover, but it's like a really pretty green and it has kind of like a frosty look to it and it's really soft. And it's pretty, the petals are really soft and it's pretty rigorous. The whole summer from when I first did it to now, it's really, there's like one patch that it's really taken over. So this season I'll get more of that to kind of fill in. But my whole thing was because I wanted to do that because I have this thing, like I never wear shoes. I wear flip-flops, Birkenstocks. As soon as the snow's gone, like now, I've started wearing my Birks again. Like I just, I don't know what it is. So being outside barefoot, and I don't have any mulch pathways of like wood chips or anything like that in our garden. It's grass. And I just really love to be out there barefoot. I love to be earthing. I love to get myself on the same energetic frequency as the earth. All of those hippie weird things, because that's who I am. And So the lamb's ear, it's just, I wanted something that I could walk into my garden barefoot, and it was just, it wouldn't be like an ooh, ah, ooh, over all the little pebbles and rocks. I don't want that. So what better thing than having plants that are ground cover plants that can tolerate being stepped on, that are soft and smooshy for your feet. So that was really cool. And I put another creeping foliage down like ground cover, and it was like creeping thyme or something, and that one is doing fine too, but I really do like the lamb's ear, so I'll probably just plant more of that this year. So moving on, things that did not do so well. First off, this year was really weird. I live in Eastern Washington, so it's very, very dry here. And a lot of times when you hear of Washington, people think of Seattle, which is, it's like 80, 85, and you always get a nice cool breeze from the ocean. It's a lot more humid and moist, right? Well, on the eastern side, it's on the other side of the mountains, it's dry, and it gets hot, and it gets cold and snows. We get all 4 seasons, unlike a lot of times on the other side of the mountains. So over here, it's very dry, like I've said. This year was not. It was super, super wet. It didn't warm up and get nice until like July. And so it was so wet. We had so many problems with earwigs, slugs, and fungus gnats. It was horrible. So I did end up getting... I did some straw mulching, because I just use straw mulch, like the stuff you buy in the bags, that's not bales, but that stuff is really nice. So I started using that, and that kind of helped. And then I take that back. I had put that down, and I was like, what the hell? Well, it's holding in the moisture. So I think I ended up raking it all up so that the beds could dry out some, because it was just so much water. And then that helped a little bit, so that's what I did. So the pests were horrible, but this year I'm going to mitigate some of that with some other stuff. So, and another thing, like a lot of things did not do well, like my tomatoes. I mean, we did get a few harvests of tomatoes, but not. I want like a thriving, lush garden, and like some of these people that I follow, and it's not ever been like that. So going forward, I'm doing a lot of things differently this year. So I have always hand watered, or we have, like last year, we utilized the sprinkler system that we have in our garden area. And, it did okay, like I said, but like our corn didn't do very well. Our melons did not do well. And part of that was it just did not get hot enough this year and dry enough for those cucumbers, the melons, things like that, that like that really hot weather, the tomatoes. But we did get a few of the tomatoes. We did get green beans. We did get peas, potatoes, but not like a lot of them. So this year, I want a nice garden. So at the end of the season, I mulched all of my beds, and then I put straw on them, kind of to put them to bed for the season. And then this spring, I'll take all of the mulch off when I go to plant, and then I will probably put more, I'm thinking I'll probably do either like worm castings or just get more compost and do another thing of compost when I plant the plants. And I've actually got irrigation that I'm going to be using. So this was the kit I got. I got a kit to start with so that I can do it myself. My husband a lot of times will help me, but he gets really busy with other stuff. So, and I just am kind of one of those like do it myself kind of girls. I like to figure it out and do it on my own and know how to do it. So I got this kit so that I would have all of this stuff in it to start getting my irrigation set up. And then from there, once I know how it operates and it works, and then I'm thinking I'll just get like a triple valve hose connector to go on my hose bib, so I can utilize my hose and then have two, but then I can just go get the hoses and then the drips and the emitters and all the things that I need to go with this to make more to add onto it after I utilize the kit and kind of learn how to do it myself. So that is one of the big things I'm doing this year. The other thing I'm doing this year is I am going to utilize more square foot gardening in my garden beds, because I feel like I could probably fit a lot more plants in if I utilize square foot gardening, because I do raised garden beds, and this year I'm making a bunch of new beds with just brick borders, and then I'm putting down cardboard in them, and I am going to put mulch or compost on them, and then I'm just going to plant in them like that. So I'm doing some more square foot gardening. I'm going to add in, I've already ordered tons more flowers to put in my yard and my garden. A lot of them are edible. I'm going to utilize new growing spaces. I have on the west side of our house, we have this strip that gets mostly shady, but gets full sun in the afternoon. So I'm going to put some beds back here and utilize more growing space there. And then I'm going to put some beds on the other side of our fence. We have another of our garden fence area. We have another little strip beside our front walkway up to our house that I have where that's where I, along the fence there, I put mulch or compost down last year, and that's where I planted all my sunflowers along there. And that's where our garden gate is. So I'm planning on putting a little trellis over from the gate to when you walk in, and I'm going to plant something there. I'm not sure. I might do some Malabar spinach there to go over. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there. So, but I'm planning more along the fence line this year with the sunflowers. I think I'm going to do hollyhocks, and then I'm also going to do more poppies because they get pretty tall to go along with the sunflowers in there. So that's what I'm going to do that too. And then I am going to I'm making a raspberry bed. I have one raspberry bush plant right now that we actually got fruit on this year for the first year, and that was really exciting. But it's in a big barrel, so I think I'm going to build a little bed for more raspberry plants along the fence where it gets full sun, and then I have the fence where I can like kind of trellis them up so they stay up instead of like taking over. And then I'm going to utilize that barrel because I want to get a couple of blueberry bushes. My property isn't big enough. It's the burbs. It's not the suburbs, but I live in town. I live in the city. So I don't have a lot of room on my property for fruit trees per se, but I can get berry bushes and those will be great. So that's what I'm going to do with those. I really wanted to get a dwarf peach tree at one point in time, but the only place that I would be able to put it in full sun would shade out some of my garden that's full sun. So I just decided, and then again, peaches is something that is plentiful around here. I can go to Green Bluff, I can pick them, I can just buy peaches, flats of peaches. So it's not like that's something that is getting shipped here in the summer. I can go buy it locally and then do canning and stuff, which I plan on doing. I canned a bunch of pears this year, but I was really bummed I didn't get to do any peaches. So what else? I'm going to be adding more cattle panel. I'm going to utilize the cyclone fence that we already have in our garden. And I'm going to add some cattle panel onto it to raise the height up a little bit. And that's where I'm going to plant all of my pole beans and my snap peas and everything to make a nice privacy in there for us, hopefully is my thought. And then, because those will still grow up, and then I can probably put some tomatoes along inside there too, and whatever else is going to be viney and grow, maybe some melons or I got cucamelons, those kind of take over, just to make privacy, because we live on a corner lot, and so it's like our fence where our garden is, and it's a sidewalk right there, and like our neighbors. So we're totally in the open. And last year it was really nice because where I had put my snap peas, we had done a trellis, and so we had them, so we did have a bit of privacy. And then I had all of my sunflowers planted along our garden fence and along our front walk fence, and so that was really nice because it gave us privacy when we were in the garden from that direction. So that's my thinking this year, is just to make it so when we want to be out in our garden, it's not like we're sitting out in our front yard waving at all our neighbors that are driving by down the road or whatever. So Eventually, hopefully, we can put like some privacy fence up, but I think it's kind of cool having a living fence because in the wintertime, we're not outside a whole lot, when it's, in the low 30s, low 20s, and it's snowing, and, unless we're actively doing something. So we don't really need to, have it. Oh, the other thing I'm doing this year is I am going to be weighing all of my harvests. I wanted to do this last year and I never did. I thought about it and then I just didn't. I got lazy and I didn't do it. But I wish I would have. And part of the reason I didn't do it was because also I thought, well, I'm not really getting a whole lot of harvest and what's the point? Well, that's stupid thinking because it would have probably shown me now, hey, you got this many pounds of food from your garden. That's still a win. So definitely going to be weighing all of my harvests this year. And also I want to document my garden area and the growing. This was something that Jess from Roots and Refuge had said one time in one of her videos, that documenting every Sunday with photos is just a really cool way to have a progress and to look back, and also to know for future years, like what works, what didn't, where the placement was, and stuff like that. I have been utilizing for garden planning at Farmer's Almanac. They have a garden planner, a digital online garden planner. It's really super easy, friendly to use. It's super, super cool to see everything in color and laid out and its actual dimensions. Like I went out and I measured my beds and then measured the beds in the space that I had for the new beds that I wanted. So everything in there is really accurate. And it's got a lot of other really cool features too. And it was a free 7-day trial. And then I think it was like $35 for a year. So it's absolutely, I think, worth it in my mind. I love Farmer's Almanac. That's one of my go-tos whenever I'm looking for something that has to do with gardening or weather or anything like that. So that was really cool. And then the other thing is that I think this year with my potatoes, instead of using soil, I think I'm just going to start them in soil in the bottom, because I use really good soil like Happy Frog and it's expensive. So I think I'm going to do the Ruth Stout method this year. And so I'm just going to start them. I don't even think she starts in soil. I think she just starts in straw. But I'm going to put a little soil in the bottom, and then I'm going to put my potatoes in, and then I'll put a little soil over top of them. And then when they start to grow, I'm just going to straw mulch them and just leave it at that. I've heard that that will work fine. And I think it's going to save me some money on getting soil this year for that kind of thing, especially when I have, 6 or 7, 20-gallon grow bags of potatoes. That's a lot of soil. So that's what I'm going to do this year. I'm doing that for my potatoes. So I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to cover. And the other thing that I'm super excited about, one last thing, is that this year I am going to be adding in a mushroom bed out in my garden. I'm super excited. I'm going to get some wine cap mushrooms, and I'll probably get an oyster mushroom kit, because you can grow oyster mushrooms outside too. A lot of times when you look stuff up like that, it talks about them being like an indoor mushroom, but I follow another girl, can't think of it right now. Anyway, she's another YouTuber, and she said one time she took her spent oyster mushroom after she did it in the house on the brick that was harvested. Then she took that brick outside and took the plastic off it and broke it up and put it in her bed, and she harvested another 60 pounds of oyster mushrooms out of her garden bed. So I already got some burlap bags for that, and then I will probably just put that over in one of the new west side beds that I'm going to do and have them on that side of my house, since it's mostly shady all day long until like afternoon sun. So I'll see how that works out. But yeah, so I've got some fun, exciting stuff going on. Hopefully everything will pan out and I'll do everything and get everything done. If not, I'll add it to next year and we'll just go from there. So thanks for listening. If you stayed this long, then kudos to you. I bless you with prolific growth in your garden this year.